This is a video about hardwood cuttings. You must be wondering why I have seldom ever referred to hardwood cuttings and avoided the subject altogether. The reason for this is severalfold. First of all, I'm so successful with air layerings. This air layering, believe it or not, I started in early September, and within a month I started getting roots. It's full of roots, but perhaps not sufficient root to take it off because now we're at the end of November. So I didn't take it off, but it just shows what a lot of success I have with air layering. So I've never bothered to make hardwood cuttings. I've been watching some videos of other channels. I don't often watch other people's channels, but I was surprised what success people get from doing hardwood cuttings. They're using maple trunks this thick, some of them are that thick, 3 to 4 inches thick, and they're all successful. In the UK, the person who is very successful with hardwood cuttings is our friend Mark Molan, who is the founder of the UK Bonsai Association. He makes these lovely 1 and 2 inch thick maple cuttings, which are only about 1 or 2 inches high, and produces beautiful shohin trees from them. So it shows that it is possible. So why have I not done it? Well, as I told you, I'm so successful with air layerings that I've never bothered with hardwood cuttings. But we're going to try making cuttings with these large trunks to see what success we have. So often in life, we assume that we know everything, but this is one area where I must confess I don't have a lot of experience and I don't know a lot. But there's always a case for experimenting and learning new things. One of my great beliefs is that you're never too old to start doing anything, never too old to learn new things. So this is going to be a new journey of experimentation with hardwood cuttings. So in this jungle of maple trees, they're just Acer palmatum. You won't believe it, but these were planted 10 years ago when they were only pencil thick. And the trunks on some of these are about 3-4 inches thick. And some I have cut over there to create new taper, but some I've just left to grow on. But even the ones that I've left have been cut there, cut there, cut there, cut there. And so we produce the taper. But I can't leave it to go forever. I'm going to dig these up next spring. And when we dig it up in next spring, all these are going to be cut off and thrown away. So why throw them away when we can make hardwood cuttings? So let me have a go. So what are the tools I do use? Here, my great big new lopper. For those who want to know the brand, it's called Barnell. And this is the sort of cutting I'm going to make, like that, and even thicker. So this is about 1 inch or 3/4 inch, and the lopper will easily handle that. So we're going to get about maybe 20 cuttings from that at least. And if they're much thicker, I can probably use this trusty chainsaw. And I'm going to try, some of these have got such lovely shapes. It's a shame to cut them off. As I say, I can't keep making air layerings forever. So let me see where I can find some nice looking branches. Maybe that one. And the other tool you can use for those who don't have these power tools or long loppers, this is called a silky saw. And silky saws are very good for cutting, very, very sharp. So there's a taper there. I can probably cut there. Never cut soil with the silky saw because you blunt the blade. But with the silky saw, you get a much cleaner cut. Cleaner cut than the chainsaw. So every tool has its own advantages. So we'll take some of this material back into our greenhouse and we'll start making cuttings from it. So as I said, this is a new learning experience. I've got to admit that sometimes I get it wrong. I've never been successful with hardwood cuttings. I don't know why, but there's no reason why you shouldn't experiment and try new things. It's only by trying new things that you learn and progress and add to your fund and wealth of knowledge. So we will watch the progress of this video. There you are, one long branch, and from here I think I can get at least 100 cuttings from that. How good is that? And if you look at all these plants, if I were to take all the cuttings off, I will end up with far too many. Now, why don't I do that? I will actually another one there. That I might air layer. I better not do too much because I may not have the room to plant them all. So I've got 3 big branches here, and we're going to use that, and I'm going to find some Arakawa. This is ordinary mountain maple. So let's go to an area where I know there's some rough bark maple. I'm spoiled for choice. Okay, let's do this one. So this is Arakawa, the rough bark maple. Look at the lovely bark on it. So we'll try this. I've also got Japanese hornbeams, European hornbeams. I might even give them a go. But I won't tackle any of the evergreens like junipers and pines for the moment. Let's stick to this at present. So we'll go into the greenhouse and start preparing these. So here we are. If we are going to be greedy, we can get several hundred from just one branch. Let's proceed. So there are going to be a selection of thin ones and thick ones. So the thin ones are anything like pencil thick or even thinner, and we will proceed by taking them all off. But why don't we reduce the size a little more by using the loppers where we can. So let us cut some of them, either slanting cut or straight cut. I don't want to damage the cambium too much. That's the trouble with a lopper, it can crush it too much. So I've got to be a bit careful. Clean cut. This is a brand new pair of secateurs. Some people say that you should sterilize the tools, but I don't think it makes that much difference. If you're doing grafting, yes, maybe. But for this sort of thing, may not be that critical. So let's proceed. These large loppers are very efficient. Look at that. But when it comes to things as thick as that, I may struggle. So I may have to use the saw. And how about the length of the cutting? I don't want to make it too long, because if it's too long, it takes a lot to send the moisture up the top. So maybe about 8 inches or so. And then these branches, I'll probably keep them short. So that could make one cutting, that could make another cutting. To save space, let's reduce the length of these branches. I'm going to make a long one with that. So you must be wondering what I'm doing with this marker pen. With the marker pen, I'm going to mark the top, either with a T or something. The reason for doing this is quite important. You don't want to stick the head in the rooting medium or the potting compost. You want the head to stick up. You want the feet to be below. I've often wondered what would happen if you did it the other side up. It may still sprout, but I don't want to press my luck. So just mark the top so that you don't get confused. Even with these ones, you can usually tell the way the branches grow. So these ones, they're not too difficult. But in the other cases, especially the thick cuttings, which are like cylinders, you should mark the top. Otherwise, it can be confusing. So I'm not going to spend too much time showing how I'm going to cut all these, because if you can imagine, this would take me at least about 20 minutes or more to get all the cuttings from that. Same with the rough bark. So we will stop the camera for a while and then show you the next stage. I thought I'd point out a little detail which might help you. So you notice that we are cutting almost at random. But from my experience producing cuttings with evergreens and other plants, we've always tried to cut just below a nodal point. By a nodal point, these are what we call nodal points, where the growth comes. So if you cut here, where there are no nodes, apparently that is not so successful. But if you were to cut just below the node there, that is more successful. For some reason, there is more activity going on there. And the top also, you cut it to about there. So the same would apply with a big cutting. So with this big one here, rather than cut willy-nilly anywhere, if you come close, I could easily have cut there, but I don't want to cut it there. I will cut it over here where there's a growth point there. So that hopefully should give me greater chance of success. So I'll go all along the branch and keep doing this. Just below a node. Now this is going to be a long one. I'll just try a long one there. And this one I'll do here. So I hope that gives you some idea. See, the shape's already there. So we will now again remember to mark the top and the bottom. We need to clean these bits up. I think that's going that way. So this is the top. With maples, recognizing the top and the bottom is quite easy because the shoots grow this way. So that is the top. So we've now produced these little stumpy sticks. They're almost like the bales of a cricket bat, but that's what we're going to use it for. We clean the top. So that's the bit we're going to stick in the soil. I hope I've got them right. And from what I gather, sealing the top to prevent moisture loss is quite important. Some people have used a type of wax, but this is just an old pot of wax that I have. So I'm going to use, you can use anything. You can use Vaseline, car grease even. As long as it's wax, you don't have to be that fussy. I don't think so, at least. So we're just going to seal it. The reason for doing it is to prevent, as I say, moisture loss from the top, because the more you prevent moisture losing from here, the more chance it will get to root. So I will proceed to do all of them with the grease. But the other alternative, if you don't have access to grease, is our good old sealant, tree sealant. This is a proprietary brand of tree sealant which we use, and you can use that. We use it for a lot of our trees, so we will use this material. You can use the Japanese tree sealants as well. As I was saying, if you are to do scientific controlled experiments, you should be doing several hundred of each, like this. 100 with the tree sealant, 100 with the grease, and so on. But because we are not that scientific and we haven't got laboratories and large amount of space for that, we will just do controlled amateurish experiments. But even though they are small experiments, they should still work and give you experience and practice. And because most of us are amateurs in a way, you don't have a lot of space, so little bits of experiment like this is both fun and enjoyable and a thoroughly good learning experience. That's got grease on it. You see how I've left some of these branches, because should they root, you will have a tree which has got ready-made branches there. So I'm going to do all of them. So that is the next stage, sealing the top. We're going to seal all the tops. Even the little ones, I'm going to seal the tops. Nothing lost by not doing it. Again, if you wanted to do controlled experiments, you should be doing some which are sealed and some which are not sealed. That's the only way you can test whether one method works, and a method that you didn't apply the sealant to the top, and if it didn't root, then you can say, oh, that method didn't work. So that is how you would approach your scientific experiments. So for containers, what better than these polystyrene boxes? Some countries call them thermocool, so they're polystyrene boxes which are used for transporting. I get it from supermarkets, you see. These Chinese vegetables come in this, from China. So I'm going to use one of those. So it's got no holes, but I've got these deep plastic bonsai flower pots as well. I'll use these. Okay, so much for the containers. And as for the rooting medium, I'm going to use a mix of the Japanese, this is Kiryuzuna. Just to prevent the thing getting waterlogged. Now, when it comes to the medium, some growers have suggested that you should not use any organic material, and others say that you should use organic material. But I will use a bit of both. So this one, I'm going to use this gritty material here, and I will fill this container with this, and same with that. And then another box I will use some more organic material. So now this is a very critical part of the experiment. We're going to use some hormone rooting compound. I will use two types, both the powder, which is that. This is a very expensive thing. A container like this can set me back $100, about 90 pounds. And we use it sparingly. Some people, I notice, suggest that you make a paste with water in it so that it can smear around the base. I will probably do that. And then the other hormone liquid is this magical stuff which we buy from Taiwan. And this apparently you use 1 to 2,000, but I don't think I would use that. That is much too weak. I'm going to use like 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. Again, I'm not being that scientific. As long as it is strong, it will work. I will then add some water to it. Okay, that's the next stage. So now we are going to insert the thick cuttings, and I've prepared the paste of this hormone rooting powder. So you really soak it well. We'll do a few, in fact. I will do some with the liquid as well. I should do them separately if I'm to do controlled experiments. So all we do is to insert it about half the depth. If they're too tall, we put it in at a slant. And of course, with this container, again, this is just a pure volcanic grit. You can stick the whole thing in upright, at least half the depth. It's like making ordinary cuttings, but we're just using much thicker material. And you can do them apparently as close as you wish, because once they root, you can then separate it. So you could get well over 50 or 100 in just this large pot alone. See, it's hardly taken any space. And I should try some of it, the liquid as well. At least half the depth. And for good measure, I've mixed another load of substrate, which is your ordinary organic compost with some of that volcanic gritty material. So I'm going to try different things. So that is as far as I'll get. And then when it's all done, we just close the box like so, and then we'll keep this in the greenhouse. I've got to make sure it's a bit damp, so I'm going to water it a little bit to keep it damp, but I don't want it soggy wet. With the flower pots, of course, they are going to be watered in, and then I'm going to cover it with a piece of cling film. So that's as far as I will get. When I've completed this, I will show you the final look of the thing. So this is the end of the video that I was doing about making hardwood cuttings. So these large bonsai plastic training pots were used to make quite long cuttings. So after inserting it into the substrate or the soil, we've now covered it with plastic, and there is some light, although I believe you don't need light. And the other use we made of was these polystyrene boxes. So we've covered it up with the lid, and it doesn't need light. And because the lid is so light, we are just going to be a bit safe and put a heavy pot on it so that it doesn't get knocked off, and it will keep it warm. So we'll wait till the spring and see what activity happens then, and we will probably take it out and give it more light and expose the top to light. So that's the end of this video. I'm going to show in another video how we're going to make cuttings using a large dustbin, but that's for another video. So I hope you enjoyed this video about making hardwood cuttings.